Guys, on the line today, I've got Don Ebert, one of the commissioners of the Idaho Fish and Game, and he's down in Weippe, Idaho. The Clearwater region is where he's a commissioner for, and I thought it'd be kind of cool to get him on the show and talk about kind of the process of the commission and how decisions are made and get a little bit about Don's story and just have a good all-around, good old-fashioned Idaho hunting conversation. So, Don, welcome to the show. I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here, Jim.
So have you ever been on a podcast before?
No, I haven't.
I want to kind of, as I just mentioned, I want to talk a lot about the process and some of the issues that we face in Idaho and just kind of, we'll just kind of see where this goes. I don't really have I stopped making real formal plans on these conversations, and they end up being a lot better. So, Can we start with a little bit? Give us a little bit of your background and who you are and where you're from, and we'll take it from there.
Okay, sounds good. I'm Don Ebert, as you just said. I live in Weippe, Idaho. Lived here 58 years, and I'm 58, so I'm about as native Idahoan as you can get.
Yeah.
I own a little grocery store here, Mary Ann's Groceries, and I've lived and worked here my whole life, hunted. I'm just a regular common person, and I was a county commissioner for 16 years. I was on school board for 10, stuff like that. I've done a lot of public service stuff. I have a good life. I'm thankful, and I just try to do what I can to contribute to society. And,
yeah.
And
you do kind of have
this down to earth.
You do have this this service-oriented life because, like you said, you've been on the school board. You were a county commissioner for Clearwater County, and now you find yourself on the commissioner board of the Idaho Fish and Game. And you're also a really talented photographer because you and I are Facebook friends, and you post a lot of those pictures. And how'd you get into photography?
Well, I've always kind of liked photography, and I've taken a lot of pictures. But about a year or so ago, I decided I was going to get a good camera, and I just go out and take lots of pictures, and I take pictures of what I see that interests me. And I'll have my camera around my neck, and people will say, "What are you taking pictures of?" And I just say, "Well, whatever I see,
Yeah.
And the thing is I had no idea that people like my pictures a lot. And what's particularly rewarding to me is I've had a lot of people, particularly older folks, who say, I can't get out like I used to, and I really enjoy looking at your pictures. And, that just revs me up and helps me want to go take more because people enjoy them, and I love taking them, so it works good, and it relaxes me. It just calms me down, and so I love it. I love taking pictures.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's one of those things. There's a lot of satisfaction in getting a good image like that, and we were talking before I hit record there. You're in a great area for it, down in Weippe, Idaho, and we have like a mutual friend from Weippe. Dirk and his family, Dirk Durham, the bugler, is from your neck of the woods.
Yeah, I've known Dirk since he was born, I guess. And I was pretty good friends with his brother, and Dirk. Yeah, he's still just a kid to me. I guess we all get older.
Yeah, the years tick by, man. That's for sure. So, now how did you come about? How did the whole becoming a commissioner for the Idaho Fish and Game? How did that come about?
Well, honestly, I had never really thought about being a fish and game commissioner. In fact, when I was done being a county commissioner, I kind of said, I've done enough. I'm done. But then the position came open, and I had several people get a hold of me and say, we think you'd be pretty good at it. And so I thought, well, what the heck? I'll throw my hat in the ring. And then I thought, this would be pretty cool. It's a governor appointment, so it's an honor. And I said, yeah, I'm in. I'll try it. And I'll be darned if he didn't choose me. And when I got to thinking about it quite a bit more, I think I can I can do pretty good because, I'm just a local guy. I have a business degree. I have my own business, and I think that I bring the business perspective to Fish and Game. And also, one of the things I've always believed in is, people need to have a better voice. Just common people who are out in the field, the hunters, and just folks that maybe aren't always heard. And they thought, I think I could do some good here. So
yeah, it's
I decided I'd try it.
It's a super interesting situation because the one, and we're going to get into this because I think that there is and just based on, if you get on social media and all these other outlets where people are commenting and things, you kind of realize the major disconnect that seems to be in place between, a lot of average hunters that may not understand the process of how rules are made and how rules are changed and how the Fish and Game operates and who enforces that and who decides this and that. And so that's why I think this is going to be a really good conversation.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think a lot of it is just, like you said, a disconnect. And like, I hope that I'm approachable enough that people can hear what I have to say and understand. Maybe I'll tell you, it's way more complicated than most anybody could imagine. And,
yeah. I've gathered that.
And so it's way complicated, and some people just they just kind of start talking about how Fish and Game does everything wrong, and it's like, well, really, what's going on here is you just don't understand what Fish and Game's up against. And I hope I can alleviate some of that. And if there's places Fish and Game needs to step up and change, great. We'll look at everything, but mostly I think I just wish people understood what takes place and how it has to happen.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's super important because I've seen it. I can't tell you how many times I've seen somebody make a comment on one issue. It doesn't matter what the issue is, and they're blaming Fish and Game where Fish and Game does not necessarily deserve the blame there. And we'll get into that down the road, but that's what I really hope to clear up, and I want just hopefully listeners are going to come out of this episode with a little bit more clarity, at least for the state of Idaho. I know we've got listeners all over the country, and I would assume that a lot of states operate fairly similarly to the method that Idaho does in terms of wildlife management. But the one thing that I really like about the Idaho Fish and Game and the way is I guess let me take a step backwards. The management philosophy in the state of Idaho is hunting. That is how it has been determined that we're gonna manage our wildlife through hunting. And the director was very clear. And I had the director of Idaho Fish and Game on I don't know 6 or 7 months ago, and he was very clear about that point, and that actually really opened my eyes as to that it closes off other options in terms of this is how we manage our wildlife. There are no outside factors. There's not some advocacy group in Idaho making rules that the Fish and Game is going to have to come up with. There's no other process of managing our wildlife outside of hunting, which eliminates a lot of some of the distractions that can take place in wildlife management that are really founded in misguided beliefs and misconceptions and stuff, especially from outsiders from outside of the state. So I was really happy to hear that. And Director Schriever was really clear about that, and I think we've got a great director. That's my personal opinion, and so far the whole board, the commissioner board, has been everybody just seems to perform, and I'm speaking to those in Idaho that maybe a little bit have been disgruntled with the Idaho Fish and Game. I would encourage you to look into how some of these wildlife management systems take place in other states and compare it back to Idaho, because we have it pretty good here.
Oh, I would think so, and it's Idaho. We hunt and fish, and I'll defend that. I think any of us would, but that's, we hunt and fish, and that's what we believe in, and that's how we live, and that's the way it's going to be, and it's good. I mean, it's been good for a lot of us.
Yeah.
It's Idaho.
This
We
is
hunt
Idaho.
and fish. We enjoy the outdoors. We live here because we like it here. We like what it has to offer, and outside people who, anti-hunting or anti-trapping or whatever, it's like, get over it, because we've been doing this here a really long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's who we are. It's who we are. Don't try to change who we are.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think that is one thing that we need to really focus on over the coming years, because we do have a growing population here in the state of Idaho. And a lot of the people that are coming here, they don't have a background in hunting. They don't understand hunting. They don't understand wild game meat and wildlife management systems that evolve around the hunting and trapping industry. And so I think that's going to be something we're definitely going to want to be paying attention to. And Don, how long have you been a commissioner now? Because you're one of the newer commissioners.
Oh, 6 months or so. I'm just a newbie, so some of the stuff I tell you about process will be a 30,000-foot view.
And that's okay. That's okay. And
Yeah.
when you first joined the commission and you became a commissioner, like what would you say was the biggest surprise to you as to how the process works?
Well, it was a pleasant surprise, I would say, but the biggest surprise for me is how on the ball fishing game really is, and how complicated this is, and how many things they have to deal with, and how professional they are. And it's like, my God, I'm pleasantly surprised. People don't go into wildlife for any other reason than that's what they like. It's their passion,
Mm-hmm.
And you go be a wildlife biologist or whatever it is you become, and you dedicate your life to it. And these people honestly are quite impressive. I got to say.
Yeah. Well, that's good to hear. And I would concur with that from, an outsider's opinion, so to speak. But I imagine it's just a tough place to be, whether you work for the Idaho Fish and Game as a biologist, or you're somebody like Director Shriver, or you're a commissioner, whatever facet that you're involved with the Idaho Fish and Game. The challenge is again, Idaho manages through hunting, and I don't
Right.
know that there's more of an opinionated group of folks out there above hunters. I mean, we are very opinionated. Everybody has a take on every little thing, and there's 100,000 different opinions as to how to manage mule deer and versus whitetail, and what to do about wolves, and it's just got to be a complicated position to be in, really.
Well, I think it is, and the thing about hunting is people are passionate about it, and it means a lot to them, and so they're high level functioning people who love what they do, and it affects them greatly, because I know a lot of hunters that are, my God, they live and breathe this stuff.
Yeah, well, you're talking
important.
to one right now.
Yeah, well, and that's good. It's a good thing, and that's
yeah.
People get amped up about it, especially when they don't understand what's going on. And there's some stuff that I get amped up about too, and you got to work through the process. And one thing about it, you're not going to make everybody happy, and there's things that you got to deal with that it's like, God dang, we wish we could do better.
Mm-hmm.
Population increase, lots of hunters, federal land, lack of active management on federal land, introduction of wolves, grizzly bears, all stuff that are beyond our control that we have to deal with, that create problems and make it. I think everybody wants to hang on to, I remember how it was before,
Mm-hmm.
and it changes, and it's not always because of what Fish and Game does. Sometimes it's you just look at wolves and grizzly bears, and I've had people tell me, Fish and Game wants wolves, and I just kind of shake my head, and I said, and maybe I'm speaking out of turn here, so this is my opinion. I said, I don't think anybody hates wolves worse than Fish and Game, you know.
It's got to make their job more complicated when we're talking in the light of we've already got areas in Idaho where elk numbers and mule deer numbers are struggling, and I mean, it's just a bad time to be a mule deer anyway, but and then we introduce these wolves that's out of the hands of Fish and Game, and that's one thing that I think should be very clear because I've seen this comment a lot on social media. It was not Idaho Fish and Game that determined or decided to bring wolves to Idaho. Am I off base with that?
No, you're absolutely right. And so we get wolves put in here, and thankfully Fish and Game is charged with managing them. But at the same time, they can't just say, well, we're going to go kill all the wolves, which is what some people want. I mean, you can't do that because you don't want them to be listed again. I mean, you got to kind of go middle of the road as far as what's acceptable for the Endangered Species Act, and let's get them under control,
Yeah.
So it's
I think
a tough spot.
The wolf topic is a big one on my show. We talk wolves quite often, probably too much on this podcast, but it's a big topic because I mean they're complicated. They're a very cunning animal. They're very smart. They're prolific breeders. All these things that we talk about all the time, and I think that, for me, I've had frustrations with Idaho Fish and Game and in terms of the wolves, just because I feel like that we as trappers and hunters and these people out here, that we now have the ability to manage the wolves. We now have a lot of tags available, which is thankful to the Idaho Fish and Game. They've been very liberal with tag allotment, and the amount of tags each hunter or trapper can have has gone up dramatically, and that's a good thing. And but there's
Absolutely.
At some point we do feel like, man, these wolves, hunting these wolves are next to impossible. I'm a pretty decent hunter, and I cannot freaking get a wolf. But it's the trappers that take care of wolves, and
Right.
I know that there's been some help from the Idaho Fish and Game with associations like the Foundation for Wildlife Management, funding wise, and things like that. And I just sometimes I feel like it's come a little bit too slow, and that has been one of my complaints with that. And I'm a fan of the Idaho Fish and Game, but that doesn't mean that I agree with everything. And that's just going to be with everybody. Right now on the table, like, what is the discussion amongst commissioners in the Fish and Game? What's the atmosphere like when we're talking wolves?
Well, I think we're pretty well all on the same page. A little background on, now this is just my personal opinion, but the Endangered Species Act, and you get something that's listed as threatened or endangered, and so then you have wolves, and it's a federal government thing, and so they get listed to save the species, on and on and on. Well, the big problem in my mind is when it's time to delist them, there's too many outside groups that sue and obstruct and keep the process from working. So what happened with wolves is they didn't get delisted until there's like 100 times too many of them.
Yeah.
And so that's why everybody hates that stuff. I mean, if it actually worked as it was intended and there weren't so many obstructionists, and maybe we'd have a better chance of dealing with it properly. But whatever the case may be, wolves were not delisted when they should have been. In my opinion, there's about 100 times too many of them, and finally it was a congressional action that delisted them, and so they got delisted, and then we're able to manage them. Now there's issues. For one, how many of them are there? How in the world do you count all the wolves? I think we all know there's too many, and I think the climate among the commissioners is, yes, there's too many. We need to get rid of them, but we also have to take a stance that's defendable. It has to be methodical, and it has to be based in science and fact. And how many can we get rid of?
So is there an active effort to gather the facts and the research and the science Beyond
Absolutely.
like hunters like me that know I can go into, let's say, Unit 10, for example, and know that there are no elk left there in comparison to
Right.
10, 15, 20 years ago.
Right now, Fish and Game's working on what they call a population estimate. Um, the population estimate for 2020, and to establish whether the population trend is increasing or decreasing.
Mm-hmm.
I know that Fish and Game has upped the harvest, how many of them are killed, and I think Fish and Game even killed some themselves. And so we got to find the balance where it is that we decrease the population, because if it's still increasing, we're not doing enough. We need to
Yeah.
decrease it.
Yeah, it's still. I
I
mean,
think we're headed there.
I think we're
I
getting
think we're headed
close.
there.
I think we're getting close,
Well,
and a lot of that is thanks to our trappers out there that are actually starting to trap approximately the same amount as the pups that are born each spring, and that's really where the shift happens, because up until this point, here we are over 20 years after they've been reintroduced. We're just barely getting to that point where trappers are able to get as many wolves that are born each year, and hopefully we can start getting that number down, because and obviously I have strong opinions on this, but the
yeah,
wolves, they're
yeah,
wrecking the landscape.
well, yeah, absolutely. We need to be able to, keep the population level before we're even close to quote unquote controlling them. First we got to
Yeah.
keep up, and then we got to decrease the population. But frustrating as it is, Fish and Game cannot take the stance of let's just wipe them all out. No matter
Oh
how
yeah,
much
and I don't
everybody
think
might.
any reasonable hunters are asking Fish and Game to take that stance in any way. I think that what
No,
you know to me, the last estimate was more than 1,500 wolves on the Idaho, or within the state of Idaho, of which stated that we could manage for 300 to 500 wolves, and so we're three
right,
times as many as the maximum number. And I think that
right,
if I had my druthers, if I can call up Don over at the Clearwater Region Idaho Fish and Game and say, hey, Commissioner, let's go ahead and get those wolves down to 500. I feel like 500 is manageable for the state of Idaho, because now we have trappers that know how to trap them. Now we have hunters that know how to hunt
right.
them. But 1,500,
Yeah, and I
holy
think
cow!
that's too many. That's too many,
Mm-hmm.
and we need to keep moving towards decreasing the population. And I don't know anybody that disagrees with that as far as Fish and Game. Um,
Yeah.
that's what we have to do. How fast we get that done is debatable, I guess. But
Do you think that the recent on a national level delisting wolves from the Trump administration, is that going to kind of alleviate some of the outside influence that we might see from these pro-wolf advocate type kind of groups, like the Center of Biological Diversity, or whatever they're called? I don't know. I've been having a heck of a time with them lately, but does that delisting help our cause?
um, I think it probably will help the cause in that it's law of the land. Wolves are delisted, but I think they'll ramp up their efforts, and I don't know how much traction they'll get, because they just had a big thing taken away from them as far as ammunition.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they're going to go away, but now that's why I think it's important for Fish and Game though to be right on point with, hey, we can defend what we're doing. We know we need to reduce the population. We have the facts to prove it. We could stand up in court. Fish and Game has a lawyer from the Attorney General's office that works on endangered species stuff. I don't know how much of her time, but a lot of it. And Fish and Game's fighting all these battles. I mean, there's wolverines, there's grizzly bears, there's wolves, there's Canadian
The grizzly bear.
Canadian lynx.
Oh yeah. Grizzly bears are another hot
Grizzly
topic.
bears. Oh yeah, and I can tell you that Fish and Game is working hard to get things the way they need to be.
Do you?
And there's so much.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. I get wound up about this stuff too, and there's so much to it.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
now the thing is, well, this grizzly bear population is different than that grizzly bear population. Even though we know there's plenty of these over here, this segment is underrepresented, so they still need to be. I mean, that stuff goes on and on and on in court, like you cannot believe.
I know. That's what I'm worried about with
And,
grizzly bears is we're going to have for the next 10 years a bunch of court battles deciding whether or not we can delist these grizzly bears. Meanwhile, these grizzly bears population, I mean, they don't breed nearly as fast as a wolf does, but there's still
right.
we're getting to the point where the attacks on people in the whether it's in the back country or I had a grizzly bear and people in my audience are going to start rolling their eyes because I talk about this dang grizzly bear all the time. I called him the Bernie Sanders bear. I had a grizzly bear come through my yard here in Hayden, Idaho, and
Wow.
that population is starting to grow, and there's more attacks, there's more encounters, and I think that they're going to become we get to this point where they're going to be dangerous because we don't live in the America that was 150 years ago. The population's a lot
No.
bigger, the habitat's a lot less. There's structures like freeways and cities and reservoirs and all these things that create these migratory destructive patterns or derailments of where they go and where they move and where they live, and it's gonna create a lot of problems. And I feel like with grizzly bears, the biggest difference is people are gonna die from these things. I mean, they're not as cuddly as some of these pro grizzly bear folks seem to think them and wolves are.
No, absolutely they're not. And I can tell you, there's battles going on all the time over that stuff.
So
in court mostly.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. I just I haven't quite dove into the grizzly bear situation like I have the wolves, but it's definitely something that I want to talk about a little bit more because we're seeing a lot of them up here in North Idaho.
Right now, wolves are a bigger problem, but the grizzly bear, I would frame it up as saying potential. We need to get ahead of the potential.
Yeah, let's learn something from the wolves. Let's learn something from the 10 years of court litigation from the wolves and what happened to our other, specifically ungulate populations due to wolves, and learn something and get in front of this grizzly bear situation before it turns into, I hate to sound dramatic, but the wolf situation can be summed up as it's kind of a catastrophic situation. And
oh, absolutely.
And I know a lot of folks in the Idaho Fish and Game agree with that. And so I'm just worried that we're going to get there and we're going to have two problems. It's going to be grizzly bears and wolves. And not that grizzlies are as destructive on our elk populations, but they are destructive enough. They're very good at taking out calves during calving season. And so, yeah, that's just something I've been thinking about more and more lately.
Yeah, it's a huge potential problem, and there's a lot of reasons for that. There's the grizzly bears themselves, but then there's this little concept in the Endangered Species Act called critical habitat, and what that means is if you get something that's listed and someone identifies that this area of land is critical habitat, you're off limits for so many things. Active timber management, just
yeah, I didn't think about that.
Because that's huge. That's almost as big as animals themselves.
Sure.
Critical habitat.
Sure.
And we need to stay ahead of this stuff. It's a little bit frustrating because federal issues in Idaho. But all we can do is stay at the table and just fight like hell. I mean, and I don't mean fight just to be contrary. I mean, hey, let's be reasonable about this. Let's just be practical, common sense. Let's do what's right, and let's quit trying to, stop the world. Anything you don't like in the world, you go to court and you sue and you get it stopped. And what a bunch of nonsense.
It's total nonsense. And so is a ballot box, wildlife management. biology or whatever the popular term is for that. But you get on some of these social media sites, and especially since the the news came out that the Trump administration or whatever, they delisted the wolves, the gray wolf, and when you read through the comments, man, there is just not a lot of sensibility or reasonability or common sense coming out of those people. They're just so fired up mad because they saw an ad 2 years ago about how sweet and cuddly the wolf was when he came in and licked the hand of some tourist or whatever. I can't remember how that video was, but anyways, that's the kind of stuff that sways them. They don't understand the impact that these things have when they're out of control, and so we're just up against that all the time, I feel like.
Yeah, they probably don't want to watch the videos of that same wolf, pulling a calf elk out of a cow.
Yeah. Before it's even born.
They're vicious. That's right. I mean, it's brutal. And, one thing I notice about people who have these opinions is most of them don't live here. And
no,
that's kind of a pet peeve of mine too, because, sometimes they act like they're the enlightened ones because they have a better understanding than the rest of us. And it's like, wait a minute, we live here and we're not stupid and we have things pretty well figured out all on our own. And, maybe some of these people from other places with sometimes higher education, maybe they're the ignorant ones. Well, maybe they should come and learn about us.
They don't live in a same perspective that we do. They don't live in the same world as we do. One of the downsides with recording a podcast on my phone is it picks up the incoming calls. But sorry about that. Anyways,
me too. That's all right.
But no, it's
a different
the
world we live in.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the world we live in, and it's reality we have to deal with all the time. But like you said, it's a pet peeve. I don't stick my nose into matters I don't know. In California or Texas or Florida or somewhere. But they feel inclined to tell us how to manage these wolves when they have no idea. They have no connection to nature. They have no connection to the wildlife here, the mountains, the lifestyle that we live, and the reality on the ground. It's really frustrating.
Yeah, and that's a big one, the reality on the ground. It's like, okay, you're advocating for something you don't understand. I mean, you don't see the truth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You think you know the truth, but until you've been here, until you live here and deal with some of this, you don't really know the truth of what's on the ground.
Yeah.
And, if you really want to do what's right in the world, take some time and learn about it.
Fix your own problems. And you're like, this is one that really just chaps my ass. These advocates and these activists in California. And for the folks that listen to this show in California, I totally understand that I sound like I'm generalizing every Californian. I'm not. What I am doing and saying is there is a large group of activisms that is well-funded, well-connected, meddling in our business in places like Idaho, Utah, Colorado, Montana, Wyoming. And so the point I'm getting at is there is a mess in California. That's why the good, sensible people are fleeing California, coming to places like Idaho, and because of the mess they're in. And my question to them is, before you start meddling in our business with wolves and elk and grizzly bears and all these other things that we deal with on a day-to-day basis and understand, why don't you fix your own problems in California?
Right.
Sorry, You got me fired up there.
No, that's all right. And as far as California, I don't have any interest in trying to fix their problems. And if they all want to live like that, more power to them. It's not. But yeah. I ask the same. Just leave us alone.
Just leave us alone.
Just leave us alone. I wish they'd keep their smoke, but
yeah,
there's not much
kidding.
I can do about that.
Yeah.
But your point's well taken. It's like, we don't need your help.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need your help. There's some pretty smart people here, and honestly, there's people who want to do the right thing. And why is it so damn hard just to do the right thing all the time?
Just do the right
Very
thing.
Disappointing.
And why is it so hard to make decisions and come to conclusions that are more fact-based versus some emotional advertisement you saw on an anti-hunting commercial on TV while watching, Seinfeld late at night. That we are pragmatic people in the West, and that does, and I'm talking about every Western state that deals with these types of issues. These Western hunting states that I talk about, the Pacific Northwest and Arizona and New Mexico and Colorado and Utah and Wyoming and South Dakota, these states that we're on the ground here, we're good at handling this stuff on our own. In fact, well, no, you know what? One of the reasons I'm so fired up, Don, is it's election day tomorrow. And so I think I'm wrapped up in a lot of this stuff where people are just meddling in our business and think that they have a right to tell us how we should feel.
Right. Yeah. Like trying to tell someone what their favorite color should be.
Exactly. So let's shift gears a little bit here and talk about some process. I wanted from like kind of a basic level. You know what? A good one for that would be this. There was a lot of chatter this year about getting the rule on lighted nocks changed so that hunters can use lighted nocks, during archery season. And it did not get passed through. And I'm kind of curious, what's your take on that, and what did that process look like from your perspective?
Well, that whole thing happened before I came on board, and I understand there was a petition put forward by citizens. Now, I could be wrong about this, but what I understand is there was a petition put forth, and the Fish and Game Commission declined to move it forward, is my understanding.
Okay, so on something like that, when and you're talking to a guy, I don't have a super strong opinion on lighted nocks, so I'm trying to come at this from an unbiased way. If they were allowed, I'd like to use them, but if they're not allowed, it's not like a life-altering thing for me. But that's why this is a good topic. But so when citizens are big on getting something like this changed, what is the correct process for citizens to go through? Is the petition, is that a powerful thing to the Idaho Commission, Fish and Game Commission?
I believe that's the way it has to start, from the citizens level. Well, take a step back a little bit. You could go to the legislature, and whatever the legislature puts into law trumps the Fish and Game Commission. So there's that. But that's kind of a tough role, But it is possible to go that route. And I'm looking at some information I have here so I get this right. Rulemaking ideas may come from the commission, staff, or the public. It all goes to negotiated rulemaking, and one of the ways to initiate negotiated rulemaking is through the petition process. But then, the way I understand it, you petition the Fish and Game Commission to take something forward, and they either move it forward or decline to move it forward. And
so on that,
I think that's.
Go ahead. On that particular subject, the lighted knocks, we've got a little bit of a delay.
You're
here.
into this, aren't you?
Oh yeah.
You're into this stuff, aren't you?
I get excited. I
can tell. I can tell, and I appreciate it. I appreciate the candid conversation.
Yeah,
that's how I do best.
That's another thing that I will say about the Idaho Fish and Game is everybody that I have dealt with have been very open. They're willing to talk. I mean, I am just some, hunter up here in North Idaho that's decided to start a podcast, and the damn director of Idaho Fish and Game came to my studio and sat down with me. And that's you won't get that in every state. And so kudos to the Idaho Fish and Game, because you guys have been very open and honest, and I feel like are willing to talk and explain some of this stuff. And that's part of the point with this is to maybe bridge some gaps and bridge some divides that may exist between hunters and Idaho Fish and Game, because I know it's out there. But getting back to that, go ahead.
I got to put. I got to put in a little plug for the director, Ed. He's about as approachable as anybody could ever be, and he's an upfront, straight up kind of guy, and
Yeah.
I don't think he ever has anything to try to hide. He just, he's got a huge responsibility, but he's approachable. I mean, I've always been able to talk to Ed, and I would like to think that everyone else can too. So yeah, I think Fish and Game wants to be open and have the conversation with the public, and let's all get on the same page here. Might not always agree with what Fish and Game concludes, but
yeah. Well, we're never
I think
gonna.
we should always be approachable.
I think it's silly to think that Idaho Fish and Game and every hunter in the state of Idaho is always going to agree 100% of the time.
No.
And I agree. The director is super approachable. I mean, he came up and he even called my dog Chubby, and my dog is chubby.
Oh, well, like I said, he's a straight up kind of guy.
Yep. No, it was fantastic. So that's just a good plug for everybody that's involved with the Idaho Fish and Game, because that is not, I know for a fact that it is not the case that Fish and Game or Parks and Wildlife or DWRs, whatever they are not always as open as Idaho Fish and Game is, and open to discussion as well. So I appreciate that for sure. Okay.
Well, I'll give another little shameless plug too. Is it's like that's perhaps that's a reflection of our governor, because I know he's like that. He's very approachable. He's a good man, and I believe we are of the administrative branch, so we're under the governor part of it, and I think Governor Little is a very open and honest and straight up guy, and I think it goes to Fish and Game right on down, and that's
sure.
I agree. That's how it should be. So.
I sent the governor a hat, and I still haven't seen him wearing it yet. So.
Is that right?
If you could give him a little nudge for me, next time he does a press
conference. Okay. Well, what's the hat say on it?
It says the Western Huntsman Podcast.
Oh.
Pretty. I might have to send you one.
I think he's kind of busy, but I'll see if he'll take my call, okay? How's that?
I'm totally kidding. It's no big deal. Yeah. All right. Getting back to this lighted knock topic is, where was I going with that? Give me just a second.
Well, it came through citizen petition. It was denied by Fish and Game to be moved forward.
That's what it was. Why was that denied? Why did that get denied?
And that I can't really tell you. Like I said, that was before I came on board, and I haven't really looked into it all that much. I can tell you at first glance, I can, as far as I'm concerned, why not? And I say that with the caveat that there's always more to it than what you understand. So
yeah,
there's probably reasons I'm not aware of. Now, I don't know why they denied it, honestly, but I'm sure they did have a reason. I can tell you that. Whether I would agree with that reason or not, I don't know. But
well, I'm trying to remember because I read it at the time, and I just it only kind of half made sense. But I know it has something to do with the attempt of the Idaho Fish and Game to keep things as primitive as possible when it's a primitive season like an archery season, and so any kind of electronic device kind of thing is but sometimes I feel like they take that a little too far. For example, like I understand having laser battery powered range finding scopes mounted to your rifle, but I have a regular scope, but I cannot put my Tacticam camera to film through my scope because of that rule, and it's like a language thing. If they just change the language, it gives me no advantage. Those kind of things.
Right.
So folks that want a rule change, or folks that want to see something happen like lighted nocks, or being able to film through the scope, or film with a mounted camera on your bow or whatever, they start a petition, and
right.
From that point, what happens? Like the commission gets together and they all kind of look at the petition, look at how many names are on it and how it was written and all that kind of stuff, and discuss it.
Oh yeah, there would be arguments for and against, and obviously there would need to be other efforts as well, like, come to a Fish and Game meeting and make your case. There's opportunity for public comments. I think most every meeting. Call the commissioners individually. Of course, we can't deliberate outside of a meeting, but you can call each one of us and try to make your case and get as many people as you can and figure out what the arguments are going to be against it and try to alleviate those concerns. And, the more effort, the better. But, yeah, basically just go and talk to the Fish and Game Commission. And I can tell you that, they're a bunch of great guys, too. I mean, I'd like to think me included, but the Fish and Game Commission, they're just regular guys like you and I, and they're reasonable people. And I honestly believe that every one of them wants to do what they believe is right, So
is there like a magic number of signatures on a petition that kind of raises eyebrows and makes the commissioners think, oh boy, we better really pay attention to this because look at all these signatures?
Well, I don't know about that. I think more signatures would probably help, but I think arguments, reasonable arguments would carry more weight. Obviously, the more signatures, the better. I mean, if you bring a petition with, just to choose a number, 20,000 signatures, it'd be pretty hard to ignore that. But, petitions are reflective of the will of the citizens to some degree,
Let's, on that topic, if some anti-hunting, pro-wolf, pro-grizzly kind of organization managed to get this petition going to, and I know this is super extreme, won't ever happen, but to ban wolf trapping in Idaho, and they had 1 million signatures, and 950,000 of them were from out-of-staters, is there a way to determine that? Like, we know that's not Idaho talking kind of thing. I don't, for some reason that always bothers me.
Well, I believe on the petition, and this might, I don't know if I'm 100% correct about this, but I believe you have to have your name and address. And I think it has a great impact. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, well, I've signed petitions, and it didn't ask me that, but maybe those ones were not legitimate and legitimately going to the Idaho Fish and Game, because I don't know. I
could be wrong about that, but I do know that when something goes to negotiated rulemaking, you have an opportunity for input, and I know Fish and Game does chalk that up by resident and non-resident.
What kind of?
However they do that.
When Fish and Game is having these meetings and these conversations, do you have, I guess, designated speakers or whatever from some of these organizations that are really not rooted in Idaho come and try to convince an argument one way or the other?
I really haven't heard any, but like I said, I've been here a short time. I've been to like 3 meetings, and I really haven't noticed that. But I do know that there's some Idaho citizens who come forward, and some of them are very well respected and listened to, Trappers, outfitters and guides, those groups carry quite a bit of weight, I believe.
Just a curiosity question, just for conversation's sake. In the state of Idaho, we've got archery hunters, we've got muzzleloader hunters, we've got rifle hunters, we've got primitive archery hunters, traditional bow. We've got trappers, we've got houndsmen, we've got, I know I'm missing some, bear baiters versus, spot and stock or whatever. Is there one of those groups that is particularly more aggressive or active or vocal at these meetings?
Well, from what I've seen, the Trappers, Idaho Trappers Association, are pretty active.
Oh man, you probably have to deal with Rusty Kramer, don't you?
Yeah, we do.
Rusty's been on the show. He's a good pal of mine. He's if we were.
Well, I can tell you he's very well respected.
Yeah, and he should be.
And like I said, I just came on a while ago, but I can tell you that he's worked at it and he's put in the time, and does his due diligence, and I can tell you he's very well respected because of the relationships. I think he's probably got a long-term relationship of trust, and that doesn't mean you have to sugarcoat everything. It means you can agree, but I mean you can disagree respectfully, but things like that. He came forward with some things, and I can't tell you exactly what they were, but the trappers wanted to limit themselves to boost their credibility, and he brought it forward. And
interesting.
The man, he has a great deal of respect, I can tell you that.
No, that's fantastic. And I tell you what, the trappers need somebody like Rusty. They've got a lot of obstacles because trapping is one of those things that just brings out some wild emotions from folks that don't understand it. For sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Good.
And you take somebody that has a good reputation with you, and they come and they have something to say to you, and it's like, well, my history with you is that you're a no-nonsense kind of guy. You're not BSing me. You're not a backstabber or anything like that. You're just up front. You're credible. That helps a bunch.
Yeah.
I can tell you.
Good. That's good to know. As we're going forward, there went my phone again. We're coming up to the year 2021. What are some big kind of priority issues that Idaho Fish and Game is going to focus on next year? Because this last year was a big year. You guys, the price increase for non-residents and dispersing non-residents into more units, kind of limiting so you don't have 10,000 residents in one little unit kind of thing. I think those were big. The increased hunting season or trapping seasons, and tags allotted to wolf hunting and trapping. These were big things. And what's coming up? What are big issues?
Well, the legislature, through rulemaking, gave Fish and Game the authority to limit non-resident tags, and I think that's going to be a big thing. And wolves, of course, is always a big thing, but getting the proper data, I think, is huge right now in Fish and Game. Get facts and be able to defend them, and then I know they're working awful hard on that. Overcrowding is a big concern. That's why the limit on non-resident tags. I think those are really the big ones.
Now the amount of non-resident tags, that didn't go down, right? It just kind of dispersed them into other units, just limited per unit?
It can go down in every unit, except now here's the complicated stuff. Okay, I was looking at some information, and the rule actually says there's two kinds of things. There's rules and there's laws. Laws are Idaho statutes that are on the book. Rules are the legislature had to bless these rules, and therefore they have the same effect as law. The last few years, the legislature hasn't been able to agree on the rules, therefore they didn't get adopted, which gives the governor temporary rulemaking authority. Okay, and that's kind of where we're at. But now Fish and Game has the authority to limit non-resident tags, but what it says is no less than 10%. Okay, no less than 10%. Well, there are situations where right now non-residents are less than 10%. So if you limit those areas, you're actually going to increase the number of tags available. And people are going to look at that and they're going to come unhinged. And it's like, well, that's what the law says. So there's stuff like that.
The law basically states, and this is a temporary thing? Or
it's a temporary rule.
Temporary rule. And it states there cannot be less than 10% non-residents or resident tags available in a particular unit?
Correct.
Gotcha.
To my understanding, yeah.
What?
Which, when there's a place, if there's a place that's got like 25 or 30% non-residents, well, you can limit. In most cases, it is, it's intended to be a limit. But I was just trying to point out some of the complexities of why you do this stuff. It's like, well, because here's what the rules say. And there's controlled hunts, which have a different threshold, and there's unlimited. I mean, it's mind-boggling what those people have to figure out. But I know that it was identified as a problem, hunter overcrowding, so there is effort to reduce non-residents.
Okay. Yeah, I think that was important and justified for sure, because there's some of these units are just getting hammered by non-residents.
Well, and the thing is too, though, to speak to what you were talking about earlier, that started from citizens.
Mm-hmm.
That's a citizen,
So there was like
a
petition
said,
started?
Hey. No, I don't think it was a petition per se. I think it was surveys. They do all these annoying surveys that they keep calling you until you answer the questions.
They're not.
Those
they're
are
almost as bad as the car warranty people, but I'm actually more than happy to answer those ones.
Well, and we should be, because that information is actually used, and it was identified. It was identified that the concern with overcrowding, and that put into motion a whole bunch of stuff like the increase in the non-resident tag fees, and now the limit. We'll decide in November, so it's a potential limit to non-resident tags, and that all started from citizens. So people are heard; they really are.
Yeah, I think.
It's
painfully
slow.
And my gripe with it is, I feel like we could have gone a little more. That wasn't that big of an increase on non-resident tags. I feel like we could have done a little bit better on that. But again, the Fish and Game is not always going to make Jim, the host of the podcast, happy, right? I mean, it's never going to be 100% for everybody. But it's such a nuanced thing too. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd love to make you happy. But I can tell you,
I'm sure
here's another thing.
Here's
another thing people don't understand. Fish and Game does not set the fees. Legislature does.
So they're the ones we need to talk to about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I actually did know that, so I don't know what I was thinking, but
you were just testing me. That's all.
Maybe that was it. I was testing you for that one. So I feel like they could have gone a little higher on those fees and eliminated non-residents in the Panhandle zone and killed all the wolves up here, and then I'd be happy.
Oh, we'll shoot for that. I don't know if we're going to get there.
Yeah,
you'll have to compromise.
No, it's super nuanced though. It really is, because there's so many different parts of Idaho with different areas and units and regions and the things get affected differently. Like for example, in the Panhandle, we get inundated by folks from Spokane, Washington, right next door coming over, right? Because we're close. Right. It's close, and our hunting season here it's worth it for them to buy a non-resident tag and come hunt Idaho, because their rules and the laws in the state of Washington, you almost have to go get a college degree on it. They're super frustrating to understand, and I know because I've hunted Washington, and so
it's Washington, and we're Idaho, so they want to come.
Exactly. Yeah. So they have longer seasons. They're easier to interpret what the rules and laws are and all this stuff, and so we just get hammered by Spokane residents, and I'm not complaining at Spokane residents at all. I don't blame them, but that's what I'm talking about. Like people in maybe Weippe or Grangeville or some of those areas. They don't have that particular problem, but they have something else they're dealing with. And so how do you balance all that as a fish and game agency and try to make everybody happy? It's got to be super difficult.
Well, it's very difficult. The people I've heard from Washington come here because it's almost impossible to be able to hunt in Washington.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, that's absolutely what we do not want to happen here. And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why I feel that way. Because I know people who live in my small little town here, rural. Some of them don't have the best means, and they actually go out and hunt so they can eat the meat. And
yeah, they depend on it.
That's different. They depend on it. And I mean, people kind of take that tongue in cheek, but I'm telling you, I'm here to tell you, I see it. I see it.
Well,
I know there's people.
I have lived that, I'm not at that stage in my life anymore. But I mean, there are times when if I was to have a meal, I'd have to go fishing, and that's how I was. I was one of the poorest 25 to 30-year-olds you'll ever meet in your life, and that was a lot of that was my fault. But I have legitimately hunted and fished for food. There was one winter, I don't know how I would have made it had I not gotten that deer that year, because that's literally the only meat I had.
Yeah, when I was a younger man and I was, working, had 2 kids, we ate wild meat. I mean, it wasn't, it just wasn't, oh my God, I want to go out and kill something. It's like, no, we need food,
Yeah.
And that's what we did.
For a lot of people, and I think that's why the non-resident issue can sometimes get so heated, because there are a lot of people that this is not a game, this is not a hobby for them. This is what they do. They go out and they have to stock that freezer up because they've got hungry mouths to feed at home, and that's how they can afford to do it. Or they live 3 hours from the closest grocery store or whatever. And so when their unit that they've been hunting their entire life all of a sudden is inundated with non-residents, and it chases all the game out, and compound that with the wolf issue, and compound that with the grizzly bears, and non-residents on every ridge, that's I think why that issue gets so heated and so frustrated really, really fast, because these people, there are people that there's 2 ways to look at it. There's people that legitimately depend on the wild game meat, and they need that meat. They don't hunt out of because they think it's a fun Saturday pastime. That's a necessity. And then there's other folks that I make the joke often with my wife, because she'll give me a hard time if I'm hunting too much. Like in September, I spent a lot of days in the field, and she'll start kind of giving me a hard time about it. Well, I need this done around the house, but you're always hunting, and I joke with her, and I'll say, well, we got to make it through the winter. I got to fill that freezer, babe. What are you talking about? And for us, that's just a joke. Yeah. We laugh. We have a grocery store right down the road, but for some people, that's not a joke. That's serious business, and that's why
that's right.
Yeah, and so that non-resident issue does become, and then there's the other side where I think a lot of people like to use the non-resident thing as an excuse as to why they didn't tag out, and you can always kind of sniff those guys out.
Yeah, well, there's that too, but it's all about balance. But I think people who are residents that hunt, because let's just call it tradition, let's call it custom and culture, whether it's for food or not. I mean, I know for a lot of us, there's no question, for a lot of us, hunting has provided food first.
Absolutely.
Fun second.
Yep.
And to me, that's kind of the root of what it is we should be trying to protect. Obviously now there's a lot of people who hunt for family activity and sport and outdoors stuff, and that's fine too. I think it's good for the soul to get out, but
that's the beauty of hunting. That's the beauty of hunting.
Absolutely.
Is hunting is exactly, it's not just food for the freezer. It really is food for the soul, and I don't care how cheesy that sounds. I don't hunt out of necessity anymore. I used to, but I don't do it out of necessity for the food aspect. But I do have a necessity in my soul to go hunting, because we're humans. We're men.
I agree.
It's just a primal thing. Yeah. It's a primal thing. It goes back generations.
It is, and every single person that hears you say that is a hunter will understand exactly what you're talking about. I hear you say that, and I know exactly what you're talking about. And there's people in the world who will kind of look and say, huh? What? Well, they don't get it. They don't get it. Maybe they should come and try it.
They don't understand it because they've never had that kind of connection. And it's not about killing an animal. It's about being connected
No.
and being a part of something bigger than yourself, this ecosystem, and being able to provide for your family, and having this extremely challenging thing all come together in a split second, and all of a sudden you're notching a tag, and that's the gratification that comes out of that is the only other way you can match that, in my opinion, is by being a father and a husband, and these things as because it's just unmatched. The feeling is unmatched.
Right, and I don't know any other way to. I don't know any other better way to be connected with, however you want to say it, Mother Earth or nature or whatever. That's the connection, And if you can sit there for an hour and a half, and your fingers are starting to get numb, and you're excited because you hear a twig break,
Yeah.
Then you get it.
And that twig breaking can either end up breaking your heart like it did me this year, or it could be the difference between a full freezer and an empty freezer. So it's a great thing. So
it's a great feeling. I mean, it's like, oh my God, talk about being grounded.
Yeah. The twig snap thing is super personal to me, because I had a twig snap on me this last September while archery hunting, after I'd been doing some cow calling, and I didn't take it serious enough, Don. I came around some trees that was blocking my view, and there, not 30 yards from me, was a big drop tine bull staring right at me, and he busted me coming out between those trees and blew off that mountain so fast my head was spinning. But so the snap twig gets me. That's the only reason I knew something was there.
Yeah.
But
I love that stuff.
Yep, that's what makes the world go round for me up here. So,
and here's another. I'll just share this with you too, and it's kind of a silly little thing. But I was sitting I just sit in a chair and back in the woods, back in the trees, and I was sitting there. I sit there for an hour or two, sometimes maybe 3, and this bunch of little birds came along, and they just hopped right over. They just went all around me, and they didn't even know I was there. And it was, obviously I'm not hunting the little birds, but it's like, I am a part of nature right now. I'm part of it. And it's like, oh my God.
That's the kind of moment. That's the kind of moment that these people that want to meddle in our lives in Idaho from these big, huge metro areas in other parts of the country, I'm going to stop picking on California, will never experience. They don't. That's what they don't understand.
No, they don't understand, and they don't, and they. I think a lot of the times they just have totally the wrong idea about us. And when you're sitting there and all of a sudden here comes an owl, and you did not hear that owl, and pretty soon he's landing in front of you, and he's way more successful than you because he just got a gopher or whatever he's after. It's like, wow, he just scored and I didn't. But
yeah,
it's like, oh my God,
amazing. Yeah, some of the most amazing experiences are hunting and seeing. An owl is always an exciting one. They're so eerie, and just majestic, and I don't know, they're super cool. I've got the coolest picture.
And patient.
Yeah, they are. They're super. You can learn a lot from an owl in the way they hunt. But I've got the coolest picture of this owl perched in this tree, and I don't know exactly what kind of owl. I'm not really an expert with that, but I was hunting elk, and he just sat in that tree and was almost the exact same color as the bark of that tree. And the only reason I knew he was there is because he kind of turned his head. And I got the coolest picture. I ought to send that to you. I'll dig it out and send it to you. It's a cool picture.
Yeah, we'd like to all see it.
Yeah. So, no, this has been a great conversation, Don. I think we touched on a lot of stuff. I did want to touch on a lot more of the process stuff. What else is there along the process lines? Do you think that hunters, in your opinion, maybe misinterpret or have a misconception about how the process of rule changes or tag allotment or anything hunting related that people get fired up about, which is a very, very wide topic, I know. Is there something else like a misconception of that you'd want to clear up?
Well, I think everybody should understand that it takes a year and a half or 2 years to implement a new rule. Year and a half or 2 years. That's an incredible long time.
So that means I'm still gonna have non-resident hunters in my unit next year because we're making the call to boot them out, right?
No. That's already been through rulemaking.
No, I'm kidding.
No,
Yeah,
it
I know.
Started.
I know that one is. That one's done.
Well, don't kid about stuff like that. Come on.
I'm just trying to keep you on your toes, Don.
Yeah, you're doing good at that. No, it takes like a year and a half, and having elected positions while I was a commissioner, I used to have a saying. It's like, to get what you want, you have to want the same thing for a long time.
That's a good way to look at it.
And that's true with rulemaking.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, it takes time. And another thing I wish people understood is that, what Fish and Game can do is limited. The legislature makes certain laws, there's rules, and then there's what we can do. We can only do what the legislature has said we can do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very important. But and I would say if somebody's really fired up about something, call one of us and try to learn about it and understand it. Maybe you can help. I know that.
They can definitely reach out to me, and I can help point them in the right direction. But it's really easy. If you just get on the Idaho Fish and Game website and go to the About tab and click or scroll down to where it says Commission Members, click on that, and all the commissioners are up there, and their emails are right there.
Right. Yeah. Please don't call screaming. Don't scream.
Yeah, except for the Salmon River or region. Ron doesn't have his email address on there yet.
Yeah, he was just appointed a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, something like that. Good deal.
Yeah, they'll get it there. They'll get it up there. But even I say that jokingly. Don't call up screaming. But you know what? Even people who are upset and yell at me for a while, I still listen to them just the same. It's like get it off your chest, calm down a little bit, and then let's talk.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, though. I think that if I was a commissioner and I had somebody call me up and they're screaming and yelling and wouldn't let me get a word in, my reaction would be a lot more different than somebody that called me up and said, hey, Don, I've got a problem with this, and my thought is this, and I was hoping we can talk about it for a minute. I think that those conversations can really make a big difference.
They absolutely can. I'll tell you, as far as I'm concerned, like I said to begin with, I'm just a regular guy, and I'm reasonable, and I'm fairly intelligent, I think. I'd like to think that, but it's like if you call and talk to somebody and you have a valid concern, absolutely stays in my head. There's no question about it. It does make a difference. I might not be able to do what you want me to do, but I'll guarantee you that I will consider it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's,
No, I think that's all we can ask.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like all I want to do is, the best job I can. I mean, I don't have any reason to do this other than I just want to do the best I can and for the people. That's what I'm all about. So
yeah. Well, we appreciate that, and I know there's a lot of folks out there that whether they have ups and downs with some of the decisions the commission makes, there's a lot of folks out there that appreciate what you guys do and are pretty reasonable about everything that does take place. And I would encourage anybody listening that, if you do have a big gripe or if you do have something that you want to bring to the commission's attention, like Don said, the email's right there on the website. Shoot them an email. Give them a call. There's other commissioners out there that, it's probably kind of nice when you guys hear from folks and get to have that kind of, dialogue already set up and going. So I think it's a good thing. And just like
Absolutely.
this, yeah, and hopefully you get some calls out of this conversation. So I think this was a good conversation.
Just don't scream.
Yeah, don't scream.
Don't scream.
Yeah. So and
It'll be a longer conversation if you got to scream, because I got to wait for you to settle down a little bit. But whatever, whatever.
yeah. So no, I appreciate you coming on the show, Don. This has been a lot of fun. Let's keep the line of communication open. Maybe we'll do this again in the future, huh?
Yeah, I kind of enjoyed it, and I'm, as you can tell, I'm passionate about it, and I believe in people. And
yeah, we're gonna have to do this again because we didn't even touch on the salmon and anything like that. So
oh my God,
yeah.
There you go. Now that's a whole other thing.
Right.
That's a whole other thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wanted to talk about that. So sorry, guys, I totally forgot to bring up the salmon issues. But we will next time.
Yeah, I'd love to, and I don't, maybe some of the other commissioners too, but this is really kind of an exciting thing, and I don't have all the answers. I got to rely on all of you to have the answers. You know what I mean? I mean, I hunt and fish and all that, and I have my whole life, but I need your help to make the decisions.
Okay.
I just do. I got to hear from people.
That's a great way to put it. That's a really good perspective to have, and I think a lot of hunters should appreciate that more.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, that's the honest to God truth. I'm just a regular guy.
Well, good deal. Well, I appreciate it, Don. This has been great.
I do got to tell you. I got to tell you one more thing, though, and maybe you could do this before you get mad and call me. It's like, this is one of my favorite things in the world to do. Go, come across a whitetail, and when that whitetail freezes and looks at you, stand there until he moves or she. Then you will be calm. That's what you need. Have you ever done that?
Oh yeah. I've been getting into whitetail hunting lately, so yeah, I'm learning a lot.
Well, you got to stand there a long time before they move before you do, and that's what people need to do when they're angry and want to call me.
That's great advice. You going whitetail hunting this year? It's about to be serious whitetail rut.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's my favorite from now to the end. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I'm learning. I've always been a mule deer hunter, so this whole whitetail thing is it's such a challenge, and it's a lot of fun. I've been having a ball with these things.
Well, I can tell you that those whitetails are way smarter than I am, but I have killed a few nice ones. So
they're tasty though. They're pretty tasty, so it works out.
Yeah. I love the taste of deer meat. I do. It's good. It's good for you.
Good for you. That's right. Thanks again, Don. We'll talk to you soon.
Good for your soul, right, Jim?
That's right. I agree for sure.
Okay. All right.
All right.